The council chamber erupted in laughter as Alice stumbled forward, her chains rattling against the marble floor. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth where Clarissa's ring had split her lip moments before. "Look at her!" Clarissa's voice cut through the jeering crowd. "The servant girl actually thought she could stand before the blood throne!" Alice forced herself to her knees, her hands bound behind her back with iron that burned against her wrists. She'd served the Nightfall Court for 23 years, invisible among the shadows, unworthy of notice. Until 3 nights ago, when the ancient texts were discovered in the Forbidden Archives. Texts that spoke of a forgotten bloodline. Texts that bore her mother's name. Silence! Lord Meredith's command echoed through the vaulted chamber. The ancient vampire surveyed Alice with cold contempt. "This creature claims descent from the first blood, from Queen Morgana herself." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Alice hadn't claimed anything. She'd been dragged from the kitchens, questioned under blood compulsion, and forced to reveal what she'd never wanted anyone to know: that her mother had whispered stories before she died. Stories of a lineage that should have ended centuries ago. "She lies!" Clarissa descended the dais steps, her crimson gown trailing behind her like fresh blood. "My family has guarded the throne for 500 years. We are the last of the pure bloodlines." Alice tasted copper as she swallowed. Her secret hadn't been safe for even a day. The archive keeper who'd found the texts had brought them straight to the council. Now she knelt before the very throne that had rejected 47 noble heirs in the past decade. The blood throne stood empty, its black stone pulsing with a heartbeat that made the air shimmer. "The law is clear," Elder Voss spoke from his seat at the council table. "Any who claims false lineage to the first blood will face the dawn chains." A collective intake of breath rippled through the chamber. The dawn chains meant being bound outside, exposed to sunlight for vampires. But Alice was only half vampire. The human blood her father had given her meant sunlight would warm her skin, not destroy it. The council knew this. They'd chosen a different punishment. "Not the dawn chains," Clarissa interjected, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "That would be too merciful for one who dares insult my lineage. I propose a more fitting trial." Lord Meredith leaned forward. "Speak." "Let her sit upon the blood throne." Clarissa's eyes glittered with malice. "When it rejects her, as it has rejected every unworthy soul who dared approach it, the shock will stop her heart. The throne's judgment is absolute." Murmurs of approval swept through the assembled nobles. Alice's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd seen what happened when the throne rejected someone. Lord Petron had seized during his attempt last month, his ancient body convulsing as the throne's power repelled him. He still hadn't regained the ability to speak. "It is decided." Lord Meredith stood. "Bring the pretender forward." Guards hauled Alice to her feet. Her legs barely supported her as they forced her toward the dais. The blood throne loomed before her, carved from a single piece of obsidian that seemed to absorb light. Ancient symbols covered its surface, pulsing with a deep red glow that matched the rhythm of a heartbeat. "Please," Alice whispered. "I never claimed anything. I only wanted to—" "Save your lies." The guard shoved her forward. Alice's knees hit the first step of the dais. The impact sent pain shooting up her legs. But it was nothing compared to the terror flooding her veins. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but iron chains and vampire strength held her captive. "Behold," Clarissa announced to the chamber, "the servant who would be queen." Laughter echoed off the stone walls. Alice climbed the steps, each one feeling like a mountain. The throne's heartbeat grew louder, pounding in her ears until it drowned out everything else. Heat radiated from the obsidian, and the air around it rippled like water. She reached the top step. The throne waited, vast and terrible, and absolute in its judgment. "Sit," Lord Meredith commanded. Alice turned, looking back at the sea of cruel faces. Clarissa stood at the front, her beauty sharp as broken glass, her smile promising suffering. The council members watched with anticipation, hungry for the spectacle of her destruction. She had no choice. Alice lowered herself onto the blood throne. The world exploded. Power slammed into her from every direction, a tidal wave of ancient magic that should have destroyed her. But instead of rejection, instead of the violent expulsion everyone expected, the throne's energy poured into her veins like molten gold. The symbols carved into the obsidian blazed crimson, then white hot, then a brilliant silver that made everyone in the chamber shield their eyes. Alice gasped as centuries of memories flooded her mind. Queens and wars and blood pacts written in the oldest magic. She saw her mother as a young woman, fleeing the court with a human lover, hiding in plain sight for decades. She saw her grandmother, killed during the purge that was supposed to end the first bloodline. She saw Queen Morgana herself, sitting upon this very throne, her power absolute. The iron chains around Alice's wrists shattered. The metal exploded into fragments that rained across the dais like dying stars. "No," Clarissa breathed. "That's impossible." The throne's power wrapped around Alice like a living thing, recognizing her, claiming her, crowning her with invisible weight that made her spine straighten and her chin lift. When she opened her eyes, she knew they were glowing with the same silver light that now emanated from the throne itself. "The throne accepts her," someone whispered from the crowd. "In 500 years. Elder Voss couldn't finish the sentence. Alice rose to her feet. She hadn't commanded her body to move. The throne's power had simply decided she would stand, and her muscles obeyed. Every vampire in the chamber fell to their knees, even the council members, even Clarissa, though fury twisted her beautiful face into something ugly. The only one who remained standing was a figure Alice hadn't noticed before. He stood in the shadows at the back of the chamber, tall and dark and utterly still. When he stepped into the light, the crowd parted before him like water before a ship's prow. He was the most beautiful thing Alice had ever seen, and the most terrifying. Power rolled off him in waves that made the air taste like ozone before a storm. His eyes were black as the void between stars, and when they fixed on her, Alice felt her soul recognized by something ancient and eternal. "My queen," he said, his voice deep enough to resonate in her bones. "I have waited 5 centuries for you to claim what is yours." "Who are you?" Alice asked, and was startled by the authority in her own voice. "I am Atticus, first of the Night Court, guardian of the Blood Throne, eternal sentinel." He climbed the dais steps with predatory grace. "And I am yours, as I have always been, since Queen Morgana bound me to serve only the true heir." Clarissa surged to her feet. "This is a trick, some kind of blood magic she stole from the archives." "Kneel." Atticus didn't raise his voice, but command rippled through the word like thunder. Clarissa's knees buckled against her will. She hit the marble floor hard enough to crack it, her face flushed with humiliation and rage. "Please," Alice whispered to Atticus. She could feel the throne's power surging through her, but she didn't know how to control it. "I don't understand what's happening." His expression softened imperceptibly. "You are frightened." "Yes." "You need not be, not while I draw breath." He turned to address the chamber. "The Blood Throne has spoken. Alice Morgana, daughter of Elena, granddaughter of Serapha, descended from the first blood, is your rightful queen. Any who challenge this will answer to me." The silence that followed was absolute. Then, slowly, every vampire in the chamber bowed their heads in submission. All except Clarissa, whose eyes burned with murder. The next 3 days passed in a blur of ceremonies and revelations. Alice moved through the castle in a daze, throne's power humming constantly beneath her skin. She'd been given the Queen's chambers, vast rooms she'd cleaned 1,000 times as a servant. Now she slept in the bed she'd once made, wore gowns she'd once mended, and gave orders to those who'd once commanded her. But she wasn't safe. She knew it every time she caught Clarissa watching her with those calculating eyes. "You must feed." Atticus appeared in her doorway as dusk fell on the 4th day. He'd been her constant shadow, though he kept a careful distance. "Your power is consuming your strength faster than your half-blood can sustain." I've only ever had animal blood, the scraps from the kitchen." "That ends now. You are queen." He produced a crystal goblet filled with dark liquid that smelled like copper and night-blooming flowers. "This is from the Royal Reserve. Willing donors from the human villages. No harm done, no compulsion used." Alice took the goblet with trembling hands. The moment the blood touched her tongue, power flooded her system. Not the throne's power. This was different. This was her own vampire nature, finally given what it needed to thrive. Her senses sharpened, colors brightened. She could hear heartbeats from 3 floors away, smell the rain that would fall in an hour, taste the magic that permeated every stone of the castle. "Oh." "Better?" "I never knew it could feel like this." Something flickered in his dark eyes. "You've been starved your entire life. No more." Before Alice could respond, the door burst open. Clarissa swept in without invitation, her entourage of noble ladies trailing behind her. "Your Majesty," the title dripped with venom, "I've come to offer my services as your chief advisor, since you know nothing of court politics or vampire law." "Lady Clarissa." "Oh, Atticus, surely even you can see she needs guidance." Clarissa circled Alice like a predator. A servant girl on the Blood Throne. How quaint, how utterly unprepared. "I'm learning." "Learning? Darling, there are protocols that take decades to master. Alliances that require centuries of understanding. Blood debts and ancient oaths you couldn't possibly comprehend." Clarissa stopped directly in front of her. "One wrong move, and you'll plunge the entire kingdom into war." "Then teach me." Clarissa blinked, clearly not expecting cooperation. "What?" "You said I need guidance. Fine. Guide me." Alice met her gaze without flinching. The throne's power gave her courage she'd never possessed. "Unless you're afraid you can't?" A muscle twitched in Clarissa's jaw. "Very well. Your first lesson begins now. There's a delegation from the Northern Covens arriving tonight. They've come to test you. Test me how? They'll challenge your right to rule. It's tradition when a new monarch claims the throne. Clarissa's smile was all teeth. You'll have to prove your bloodline is pure enough, strong enough, and if you fail, they'll call for a blood trial. That's enough. I'm only preparing her, Atticus. Better she knows what's coming than walks in blind. Clarissa headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and you should know, the Northern Covens execute half-bloods on sight. They consider them abominations. But I'm sure you'll be fine. She left, her laughter echoing down the corridor. Alice's hand shook. She's going to get me killed. No. Atticus crossed the room in 2 strides, his presence overwhelming and oddly comforting. I swore an oath to Queen Morgana to protect her line. That means you. The Northern Covens will not touch you. But what if the throne made a mistake? What if I'm not... The Blood Throne does not make mistakes. It rejected 47 pure-blood nobles. It accepted you. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. You are exactly what you're meant to be. The contact sent electricity through her skin. Alice's breath caught as she realized how close he stood, how his eyes had softened from cold obsidian to something warm and fathomless. Why do you believe in me? Because I can feel your power. It calls to something in my blood, something that's been dormant for 500 years. His thumb traced her jawline. You are the queen my soul has been waiting for. The moment shattered when bells began to ring throughout the castle. The northern delegation had arrived. The throne room had been prepared for the meeting. Torches blazed in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the walls. The blood throne pulsed with steady light, and Alice sat upon it, her borrowed crown heavy on her head. Atticus stood at her right hand, a dark and dangerous sentinel. Clarissa had positioned herself on the left, her smile sharp. The massive doors opened. 7 vampires entered, each radiating power that made the air crackle. Their leader was a woman who looked carved from ice, pale skin, white blonde hair, eyes like Arctic frost. Queen Alice, may I present Lady Morgrave of the Northern Covens. Lady Morgrave didn't bow. So, the servant girl who claims the first blood. I claim nothing. The throne chose me. Convenient. A throne that has rejected every worthy candidate for decades suddenly accepts a half-blood kitchen worker. Lady Morgrave ascended the dais without permission. Show us your power, little queen. Prove the throne didn't make a mistake. Alice felt the challenge like a physical blow. Every vampire in the room waited, watching, judging. Perhaps a demonstration of bloodline authentication, Clarissa suggested sweetly. The Northern Covens are experts in such verification. Lady Morgrave smiled. Indeed, we have a simple test. If your blood is truly first blood, it will respond to the original binding. She produced a silver dagger from her robes. Cut your palm and let 3 drops fall upon the throne's heartstone. That ritual hasn't been performed in 400 years. Yes, Guardian, we know. But desperate times call for ancient measures. A male vampire from Morgrave's entourage stepped forward, his eyes hungry. If her blood is false, the throne will consume her. If it's true, the throne will show us the lineage mark. Alice looked at Atticus. His jaw was clenched, fury radiating from every line of his body. But he couldn't refuse without questioning her legitimacy himself. I'll do it. Alice. It's fine. I'm not afraid. She was terrified, but the throne's power surged through her, lending her strength. Lady Morgrave handed her the dagger. The silver burned Alice's palm, another reminder of her half-blood weakness. She pressed the blade against her skin and pulled. Blood welled, bright red, too human in color. "Look how it bleeds," one of the northern vampires sneered. "Purebloods bleed darker." Alice let 3 drops fall onto the throne's central stone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the throne erupted. Power exploded outward, a shockwave that sent everyone except Alice and Atticus staggering backward. The blood she'd spilled didn't sink into the stone. It spread, racing across the carved symbols like liquid fire. The patterns blazed to life, and suddenly, above the throne, an image formed in the air. A family tree written in light. It started with Queen. Morgana at the top, her name burning in silver fire. Below her, branches spread. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Most of the lines were crossed out, marked with death dates. But one line remains brilliant and unbroken, leading down through the centuries to a name that glowed brighter than all the others. Alice. "Impossible," Lady Morgrave breathed. But it wasn't impossible. The lineage mark hung in the air, undeniable proof written in magic that couldn't be faked or forged. Alice was the last direct descendant of Queen Morgana through the female line, the only one whose blood could wake the throne. "This proves nothing," Clarissa's voice cracked. "It's a trick. She's using stolen magic from the archives." Enough. Atticus's command silenced her. "The proof is absolute. Anyone who questions it questions the throne itself." Lady Morgrave stared at the family tree, her expression unreadable. Finally, she knelt. "My queen, the northern covens acknowledge your claim." One by one, her delegation followed, bowing their heads in submission. Clarissa stood alone, her fists clenched, her beautiful face twisted with fury. She'd been so certain Alice would fail, so certain the throne would reject her and solve all of Clarissa's problems. Now she watched her carefully laid trap collapse into triumph for the girl she'd meant to destroy. "Well played, Your Majesty." Clarissa's smile was poison. "But ruling requires more than bloodline. It requires strength. And I wonder, do you truly have what it takes to hold this throne against all who would take it from you?" Before Alice could respond, Clarissa swept from the room, her warning hanging in the air like smoke. The celebration that followed the Northern Coven's acknowledgement lasted 3 days. Vampires from across the kingdom came to pay homage to their new queen. Alice endured endless ceremonies, accepted countless pledges of loyalty, and smiled until her face ached. But every moment she felt Clarissa watching, waiting, planning. On the 4th night, Alice woke to find her bedroom filled with smoke. She lurched from bed, coughing, her eyes streaming. Flames licked up the curtains, spread across the ancient tapestries, consumed the furniture with terrifying speed. The door was blocked by fallen beams already burning. The windows were too high to jump from without breaking bones. "Help!" Alice screamed, but smoke filled her lungs and her voice came out as a whisper. The fire had been set with purpose. She could smell the accelerant, see how the flames followed deliberate patterns. Someone wanted her dead. Someone wanted it to look like an accident. Clarissa. Alice stumbled toward the window, but the smoke was too thick. Her hybrid physiology meant the fire wouldn't kill her as quickly as it would a full vampire, but it would still kill her. She sank to her knees, consciousness fading, the throne's power pulsing uselessly in her veins because she didn't know how to use it, didn't know how to save herself. The window exploded inward. Atticus landed in a crouch amid the broken glass, his eyes blazing red with fury. He crossed the room in a blur, scooped Alice into his arms, and launched them both back through the window. They fell 3 stories, but he twisted mid-air, taking the impact when they hit the ground. He rolled, protecting her, then surged to his feet and ran. They made it to the gardens before Alice could breathe again. Atticus set her down on a stone bench, his hands running over her, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did the flames touch you?" "I'm fine. How did you know?" "I felt your fear through the throne's bond. It woke me from across the castle." His expression turned murderous. "Someone tried to kill you." "Clarissa. I will destroy her." "Wait! We need proof. If you kill her without evidence, her family will demand blood debt. We'll have a civil war." Atticus looked at her with something like admiration. "You think like a queen." "I think like someone who doesn't want thousands to die because of me." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the violence in his eyes. "You are too good for this court. Too good for these vipers who smile while they sharpen their knives." "Then help me change it. Help me make it better." Something shifted in his expression. The ancient warrior who'd stood guard for 5 centuries softened, and Alice saw the man beneath the sentinel. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make me feel things I thought died with Queen Morgana." His thumb traced her lower lip. "I've existed for so long, waiting, serving, being nothing but the guardian. But when I'm near you, I remember what it means to want something for myself." Alice's heart raced. "What do you want?" "You. In every way a male can want his female. As my queen, as my mate, as mine." His eyes searched hers. "But you deserve a choice. You deserve—" She kissed him. It was clumsy and desperate and perfect. His arms locked around her, pulling her against him, and the throne's power flared between them, recognizing something deeper than magic. A bond, a claiming, a rightness that made Alice's soul sing. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Atticus rested his forehead against hers. "The throne chose us for each other. I can feel it now. You are my queen in every way that matters. And you are my guardian, my protector, my mate." Say it. "My mate." The words sealed something between them. Power flared, and Alice gasped as she felt a connection snap into place, a bond that would link them for eternity. She could feel his emotions now, his fierce protectiveness, his consuming need to keep her safe, his wonder at finally finding the one his soul had been waiting for. "Now no one can challenge my right to stand at your side, to protect you, to kiss me whenever you want?" "Especially that." But the moment of peace couldn't last. Shouts erupted from the castle. Bells began to ring, the alarm that meant invasion. Atticus pulled Alice to her feet. "We need to get you somewhere safe." They ran toward the castle, but what they found made Alice's blood freeze. The main courtyard was filled with armed vampires wearing Clarissa's house colors, and in the center, surrounded by her guards, Clarissa stood, holding a scroll. "There she is, the false queen who tried to murder me in my sleep." "What?" "I barely escaped with my life. My chambers were set ablaze by someone using stolen blood magic. Clarissa pointed at Alice with a shaking hand. The same magic only the first blood should possess. The same magic she must have stolen from the archives to fool the throne. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of vampires who'd gathered. Alice saw doubt on their faces, fear, confusion. That's a lie. My chambers were set on fire. Clarissa tried to kill me. Oh, how convenient. The servant girl claims I attacked her, when clearly she's the one who doesn't belong here. Clarissa unfurled the scroll. I have here a petition signed by 30 noble houses. They demand a blood trial to determine the truth. A blood trial. The most ancient and brutal form of vampire justice. 2 parties would fight until one yielded or died, and the survivor would be deemed truthful by the blood itself. Absolutely not. Oh, Atticus, this isn't your decision. According to vampire law, any noble can demand a blood trial if they believe the monarch has committed treason. Clarissa's smile was victory incarnate. And attempting to murder a member of the High Court. That's certainly treason. Alice felt the trap close around her. If she refused the trial, she'd look guilty. If she accepted, she'd have to fight Clarissa, a vampire with 500 years of combat training. Alice had spent her life scrubbing floors. She wouldn't last 30 seconds. I accept. No. I have to. It's the only way to prove I'm innocent. She'll kill you. Not if you teach me. We have... Alice looked at Clarissa. How long do I have to prepare? The trial will be held at dawn. 3 hours. Clarissa's laugh was cruel. Plenty of time for you to pray to whatever gods protect false queens. The next 3 hours were brutal. Atticus dragged Alice to the training grounds and put a sword in her hands. The blood trial isn't just physical combat. It's a test of will, of power, of right to rule. He demonstrated a guard position. Clarissa will try to humiliate you first, then kill you. She'll want the crowd to see you broken. How do I stop her? You probably can't, not with combat skills. You need to use the throne's power. He gripped her shoulders. It's inside you. It recognized you. Trust it. I don't know how. Then learn, fast. They trained until Alice's muscles screamed. She learned basic guards, simple attacks, how to move without telegraphing her intentions. But it wasn't enough. She could see the knowledge in Atticus's eyes. She was going to lose. Dawn came too quickly. The blood trial was held in the ancient arena beneath the castle. Stone walls rose 50 feet high, carved with symbols of judgment and justice. The entire court gathered to watch, filling the seats in tiers that circled the sand-covered floor. Alice stood at one entrance, wearing light armor that felt foreign and heavy. Atticus had stayed with her until the last possible moment, his final words whispered against her ear. I believe in you. The throne believes in you. Trust yourself. Now she was alone. Clarissa entered from the opposite side, wearing armor that looked like it had been made for her body specifically. She moved with the grace of a trained killer, her sword already drawn, her smile sharp enough to cut. Let the blood trial begin! Lord Meredith's voice echoed through the arena. May the blood reveal the truth! Clarissa attacked before the echo faded. She was impossibly fast. Her sword whistled through the air where Alice's head had been a second before. Alice stumbled backward, barely getting her own blade up in time to deflect the next strike. The impact nearly tore the sword from her grip. Oh, this is pathetic. Did the Guardian even teach you how to hold that? Alice didn't waste breath on a response. She focused on defense, on staying alive, on not dying in the first minute. But Clarissa was relentless. Every attack drove Alice backward, closer to the arena wall. The crowd expected a fight. This is just an execution. The next strike got through Alice's guard. The blade sliced across her upper arm, drawing blood. Pain exploded through her shoulder, and she cried out. The crowd murmured. First blood to Clarissa. There it is! The color of a half-blood's shame. Too human to be worthy, too weak to rule. Rage flooded Alice. Not at Clarissa's words. She'd heard worse every day of her life. But at the injustice, at the cruelty, at the system that said only the strong deserved power, only the cruel deserved respect. The throne's power answered her fury. It surged up from somewhere deep inside, a tidal wave of ancient magic that had been waiting for her to stop being afraid and start being angry. Power flooded her veins, her muscles, her bones. When Clarissa struck again, Alice didn't retreat. She met the blow and drove Clarissa backward. The crowd gasped. Alice attacked, and for the first time, Clarissa had to defend. Their swords clashed in a shower of sparks. Alice didn't know the proper forms, didn't have centuries of training, but the throne's power guided her movements, showing her where to strike, how to move, when to press forward. This is impossible. The throne chose me. It gave me everything I need. They fought across the arena floor, neither giving ground. Clarissa's superior skill was being matched by Alice's raw power. Every time Clarissa tried to use an advanced technique, the throne showed Alice how to counter it. But Clarissa was cunning. She feinted left, then pivoted right, her blade scoring a deep cut across Alice's ribs. Alice staggered, and Clarissa pressed the advantage, raining blows that Alice barely deflected. You're still going to die, half-blood. Just slower than I planned. Alice's strength was failing. The throne's power was immense, but her half-blood body couldn't channel it indefinitely. She was bleeding from a dozen cuts, her arms trembled from exhaustion, and Clarissa looked barely winded. She was going to lose. The thought made something inside Alice crack. She'd survived 23 years of servitude, of being invisible, of being less than nothing. She'd sat on the blood throne and survived. She'd proven her lineage. She'd found her mate. She'd done everything right, everything the throne had asked of her. And she was still going to die because she'd been born half human. No. Yes. Any last words before I end this? Alice looked up at the seats where Atticus stood, his face carved from anguish and fury, bound by the trial's law to watch and not interfere. Their eyes met across the distance, and through their bond she felt everything he couldn't say. His love, his faith, his absolute certainty that she was worthy. The throne's power flared again, but this time it was different. This time, it wasn't trying to make her fight like a vampire. It was showing her something else. A memory from Queen Morgana herself. The first blood had never been about combat prowess. It had been about will, about the strength to reshape reality through sheer force of conviction. Alice dropped her sword. What are you doing? Accepting what I am. Alice spread her arms, leaving herself completely vulnerable. I am half vampire and half human. I am servant and queen. I am everything you despise, Clarissa. And that makes me stronger than you'll ever be. You're insane! Clarissa lunged forward, her sword aimed at Alice's heart. But as the blade descended, Alice reached for the throne's power and pulled. Every drop of blood she'd spilled in the arena answered her call. It rose from the sand, from her wounds, from the scratches on Clarissa's blade. It hung in the air like ruby rain, and then it moved. The blood formed a barrier between them, solid as steel, impossible to penetrate. Clarissa's sword struck it and shattered. The crowd erupted in shock. Alice walked forward, the blood parting before her, moving with her, protecting her. This was the first blood's true power. Absolute command over the essence of life itself. Clarissa scrambled backward, terror finally cracking her perfect composure. "Stay away from me!" "Kneel." Clarissa's body obeyed before her mind could resist. She crashed to her knees in the sand, held there by magic older than the castle, older than their kingdom, old as the first vampire who'd ever walked the earth. Alice stopped in front of her. "Did you set fire to my chambers?" The blood tightened around Clarissa's throat. Not enough to kill, but enough to hurt. Alice hadn't commanded it to do that. The throne's power was simply responding to the lie. "Yes! Yes, I did it!" The crowd's reaction was immediate. Shouts of outrage, calls for justice, the sound of a kingdom turning against its former favorite. "Why? What did I ever do to you?" "You existed. You took everything that should have been mine." Tears streaked Clarissa's perfect face. "I've prepared my entire life to rule. I'm from the oldest bloodline. I'm powerful and beautiful and worthy. And you're just a servant, a half-blood nobody. It wasn't supposed to be you." Alice felt pity war with anger. The throne doesn't care about what we think we deserve. It only cares about what's right. She released the blood magic. It splashed to the sand, lifeless and ordinary. Clarissa slumped forward, gasping. "The blood trial is concluded," Lord Meredith declared. "The throne has shown the truth. Lady Clarissa is guilty of treason. The penalty for attempting to murder the Queen is death." Elder Voss stood, his face grave. "Execute her at sunset." "No, please. I'm sorry. I'll accept exile. Stop." Alice's command silenced everyone. Clarissa will not be executed. She'll be exiled from court and stripped of her titles. She'll live, but she'll live knowing she lost. That the throne rejected her and chose me. That should be punishment enough. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. Clarissa stared at her with confusion and the faintest hint of gratitude. "Why would you spare me?" "Because I'm not you. I don't rule through fear and death. I rule through mercy and justice. That's what makes me worthy." Atticus appeared beside her, his presence warm and solid. "My queen." Alice collapsed against him, her strength finally giving out. He caught her, lifting her into his arms as the crowd erupted in cheers. "Did I do okay?" "You were magnificent." The coronation was held 3 nights later. Every vampire in the kingdom gathered to witness Alice crowned as the true queen of the Blood Throne. She wore a gown of midnight blue that shimmered like stars, her mother's locket at her throat, and a crown forged from the same obsidian as the throne itself. Atticus stood beside her as she took the oaths, his hand clasped in hers, their bond blazing for everyone to see. "And do you, Alice Morgana, swear to rule with justice and wisdom, to protect the weak and punish the corrupt, to serve the blood for all your days?" "I swear." "Then by the power of the first blood, by the right of lineage and the blessing of the throne, I proclaim you queen." The crown settled on her head, heavy and perfect. The throne's power surged through her, No longer foreign, but a part of her, as natural as breathing. She was no longer the servant girl who scrubbed floors and hid in shadows. She was queen. She was power. She was exactly what she was meant to be. The ceremony ended, but the celebration continued long into the night. When Alice and Atticus finally escaped to the privacy of her chambers, she felt like she could breathe for the first time in days. Is it always going to be like this? Courts and ceremonies and people watching every move I make? You're the queen. You could change the whole system if you wanted. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll make it so half-bloods aren't treated like abominations. Maybe I'll open the court to humans who want to learn about vampires without fear. You'll be extraordinary. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. There's one more ceremony we need to discuss. What ceremony? The eternal binding. It's how mates are officially joined in vampire tradition. He hesitated. It's permanent. Unbreakable. It ties our souls together for all time. If you're not ready, I'm ready. You don't want to wait? To be sure? Alice cupped his face in her hands, feeling the bond between them pulse with warmth and certainty. I've been alone my whole life. Invisible, unwanted. And then you saw me. You believed in me before I believed in myself. You make me feel powerful and protected and precious. Why would I wait? Alice. Also, you're incredibly handsome and I really like kissing you. Is that so? It's very distracting. Makes it hard to concentrate during council meetings when you're standing there looking all dark and dangerous. He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When they broke apart, his eyes glowed with red fire. You are mine, my queen, my mate, mine. And you are mine, my guardian, my love, my mate. The eternal binding is usually performed at the blood moon. That's in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Too long? I've waited my whole life to feel like I belong somewhere. To belong to someone. I don't want to wait anymore. His expression softened with so much love it made her heart ache. Then we won't. We'll perform the ceremony tomorrow night. I'll arrange everything. The eternal binding ceremony was held in the throne room at midnight. Only a few witnesses attended. Lord Meredith, Elder Voss, and Lady Morgrave, who'd requested permission to stay at court as an advisor. Torches blazed around the blood throne, and the air shimmered with ancient magic. Alice wore white this time, a gown that flowed like water and left her shoulders bare. Atticus wore formal armor, black and silver, his sword at his side, the guardian dressed for his greatest oath. We are gathered to witness the eternal binding of Queen Alice Morgana and Atticus, first of the Night Court. Lord Meredith held a silver chalice filled with blood from both of them, mixed together until it glowed. This bond cannot be broken. In life and death, in power and weakness, in joy and sorrow, you will be one. Atticus took the chalice first. He held Alice's gaze as he drank, and she felt the moment the magic activated. Their bond exploded into something vast and eternal, a connection that went beyond telepathy or shared emotion. She could feel his heartbeat as if it were her own, could sense his soul entwined with hers. He handed her the chalice. My queen, my mate, my everything. Alice drank. The blood tasted like power and promise and forever. When she lowered the chalice, the throne behind them blazed to life. Silver light erupted from the obsidian, washing over them in waves. The throne itself blesses this union, Lady Morgrave whispered. I've never seen such a thing. The light settled into their skin, leaving silver marks that wound around their wrists like bracelets, the physical manifestation of their eternal bond. Alice stared at hers, watching it shimmer and pulse in time with her heartbeat. Now everyone will know you're claimed, protected, mine. Very possessive, guardian. Always, especially with you. Lord Meredith cleared his throat. By the power of the first blood and the blessing of the throne, I declare you eternally bound. What the blood has joined, let no one tear asunder. Atticus pulled Alice against him and kissed her with enough passion to make her dizzy. The throne's power flared around them, celebrating, recognizing, blessing them with magic that felt like joy made tangible. When they finally parted, both breathless and grinning, Alice realized something had fundamentally changed. She wasn't just queen anymore. She was queen, with her mate at her side. She was powerful, with someone who made her stronger. She was home. In the weeks that followed, Alice began to reshape the court. She opened the kingdom to half-bloods, offering them positions and respect they'd never known. She established laws protecting humans from compulsion and abuse. She created councils where vampires and humans could negotiate trade and treaties as equals. Some of the older nobles grumbled. Some left the court entirely, unwilling to serve a half-blood queen. But more stayed. More pledged loyalty. More saw the vision she was building, a kingdom where worth wasn't determined by bloodline purity, but by character and choice. And through it all, Atticus stood at her side, her guardian, her mate, her eternal partner in reshaping a world that had once rejected her. 3 months after her coronation, Alice stood in the throne room at dawn, watching the sun rise through the massive windows. Atticus wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. What are you thinking about, my queen? How strange it is. 6 months ago, I was scrubbing these floors. Now I rule from a throne that chose me when no one else would. The throne saw what everyone else was too blind to see. Your strength, your compassion, your power. You saw it first. I've been waiting 500 years for you. Of course I saw it. He turned her in his arms. You've changed everything, Alice. The kingdom, the laws, me. You've made me remember what it means to hope for a future instead of just guarding the past. I thought you were supposed to guard me. I do. Every moment of every day. But you don't need as much guarding as you think. You're quite capable of handling threats yourself. I did make Clarissa kneel. That you did. Speaking of which, I received word this morning. She's thriving in exile. Apparently, she's opened a school for young vampires in the Eastern territories, teaching combat and etiquette. Really? That's good. She deserves a chance to find purpose. Only you would be happy your attempted murderer found peace. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment. That's what I'm trying to build here, a kingdom of second chances. Atticus kissed her temple. You're going to change the world, my love. We're going to change it. Together. Below them, the castle was waking. Servants, no longer treated as invisible, moved through the halls with dignity. Half-bloods walked openly without fear. Humans visited the court to negotiate treaties and learn about vampire culture. The blood throne pulsed with steady light in the chamber behind them, its ancient power flowing through Alice, guiding her, supporting her. She'd been rejected by everyone who should have valued her. cast aside by a world that judged worth by bloodline instead of character. But the throne had seen deeper. It had recognized her for what she truly was, not despite her mixed blood, but because of it. Because she carried the compassion of humanity and the strength of vampires. Because she knew what it meant to be overlooked and would never let it happen to anyone else. The servant girl who'd scrubbed floors had become the queen who would reshape a kingdom. The half-blood who'd been called an abomination had become the most powerful vampire in 500 years. The girl who'd never belonged anywhere had found her throne, her mate, and her purpose. And she was only just beginning. "You know what the best part is?" Alice asked, still watching the sunrise. "Tell me." "I'm not alone anymore. I have you. I have my people. I have a purpose bigger than survival." She turned to face him fully. "I have everything I never knew I was allowed to want." "You're allowed to want everything, Alice. Everything. And I'll spend eternity making sure you have it." He kissed her as the sun painted the throne room in gold and silver light. The blood throne pulsed behind them, ancient and eternal, satisfied at last. It had waited centuries for the right ruler. It had rejected dozens of purebloods who sought power for its own sake. But it had recognized Alice, the half-blood servant with the heart of a queen. The woman who would rule with mercy and strength in equal measure. The mate who would stand beside her guardian and reshape the vampire world into something better, kinder, stronger. The throne that had rejected every heir had finally found its queen. And she was perfect. Did you like the story? Do you want a part 2? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, big shout out to our viewers from Fort Wayne, Indiana, USA, Canada, Michigan, London, Queensland, Birmingham, UK, Long Island, New York, Albany, Central Florida, California, Missouri. Thank you for being part of my small, humble community. To our growing viewers, comment below which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!